She collapsed on the kitchen floor. Her 6-year-old son randomly called the wrong number, but turned out to be her billionaire CEO ex who abandoned her while pregnant. 911. What's your emergency? My mommy fell down, and she won't wake up. There's red stuff all around her. Please help us. Stay calm, sweetheart. What's your name? Phoenix. Phoenix Reeves. I'm 6. Phoenix, I need you to check if your mommy is breathing. Can you see if her chest is moving up and down? Yes, it's moving. But she won't answer me. The juice spilled everywhere. It looks like blood. You're being very brave, Phoenix. I'm sending help right now. Is your daddy there with you? I don't have a daddy. Mommy says he went away before I was born. Is there another grown-up in the house? No, just me and Mommy. Please hurry. I'm scared. Help is on the way. Stay on the line with me until... Hello? Hello? The phone made a weird sound. This is Theron Blackwood. Who is this? My mommy fell down, and she won't wake up. I need help. Slow down, buddy. Who am I speaking with? Phoenix Reeves. I'm 6. My mommy is on the floor, and there's red stuff everywhere, and I tried to call the emergency people, but I think I pressed the wrong buttons. Phoenix. Reeves. Where are you calling from, Phoenix? 24, Laurel Lane. The blue house with the crooked mailbox. Please help my mommy. Linnea. Is your mother's name Linnea? Yes. Do you know my mommy? Can you help her? I'm calling an ambulance right now, Phoenix. Stay on the line. I'll be there as soon as I can. Have you ever wondered how a single moment can change the course of multiple lives forever? What if a wrong number dialed in desperation became the thread that reconnected a past deliberately severed? Today's story explores what happens when a child's cry for help accidentally reaches the one person his mother never wanted him to meet, the father who never knew he existed. If fate has ever thrown you an unexpected second chance, or if you've wondered what might happen when buried secrets suddenly surface, stay with me. This is a story of a woman fighting to protect the life she's built alone, a man discovering the family he never knew he had, and a child caught between two worlds that were never meant to collide. Phoenix Reeves knew something was wrong the moment he heard the crash from the kitchen. The 6-year-old had been in his bedroom, carefully constructing a spaceship from the building blocks his mother had made for him in her pottery studio, when the sound of breaking glass followed by a heavy thud sent him running toward the noise. The afternoon light filtered through the small windows of their modest bungalow, casting long shadows across the worn linoleum floor where his mother lay motionless, a shattered mason jar and spilled cranberry juice spreading like blood around her still form. Mom? His voice came out small and frightened as he approached, bare feet careful to avoid the glass. Mommy. Linnea Reeves didn't respond, her normally vibrant face pale and still, one arm outstretched as if reaching for something. Phoenix had seen his mother sick before, the bad days, when her joints ached so badly she could barely get out of bed, when the medicine she took made her tired and sometimes sick to her stomach. But he had never seen her like this, completely unresponsive, her breathing shallow and her skin clammy when he touched her cheek with trembling fingers. Mom, wake up! He shook her shoulder gently, then more urgently when she didn't stir. Panic rose in his chest, a physical sensation like being squeezed from the inside. His mother had taught him about emergencies, how to call 911, how to tell the operator their address, how to unlock the front door for paramedics. But the house phone was in the living room, and he was afraid to leave her alone even for those few seconds. I'll be right back, Mom, he promised, his voice breaking as he backed away. I'm going to get help. Phoenix ran to the living room, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his ears. The cordless phone wasn't in its cradle. He searched frantically, throwing cushions off the sofa, checking under the coffee table, before remembering his mother had been talking to her friend Imani earlier. He raced back to the kitchen, carefully skirting his mother's still form to reach the counter where the phone lay just out of his reach. Standing on tiptoes, he managed to grab it, nearly dropping it in his haste. His fingers trembled as he tried to press the numbers for 911, but in his panic, he misdialed. Instead of the emergency operator, a series of beeps signaled the call was connecting to a number he hadn't intended to reach. Phoenix nearly hung up to try again, but desperation kept him holding on as the phone rang 3 times. Blackwood. The voice that answered was deep and crisp, the single word delivered with the automatic authority of someone accustomed to commanding attention. Phoenix froze momentarily, caught off guard by the unfamiliar voice. This wasn't 911. This wasn't help. But his mother was still lying motionless on the floor, and fear pushed him past his hesitation. "My mommy fell down, and she won't wake up," he blurted out, words tumbling over each other. "I tried to call the emergency people, but I think I did it wrong, and now she's still on the floor, and there's juice everywhere that looks like blood, and I don't know what to do, and—" "Slow down." The voice interrupted, its brisk tone softening slightly. "Are you saying your mother is unconscious?" "She won't wake up," Phoenix repeated, the simple statement bringing fresh tears. "I'm scared." There was a brief pause. Then the man's voice returned, crisper and more focused. "What's your name, son?" "Phoenix. Phoenix Reeves." Another pause, longer this time. When the voice came back, it sounded different somehow. Tighter. "Phoenix, where are you right now? What's your address?" 24, Laurel Lane. "The blue house with the crooked mailbox. Mom says it's the one with the mailbox that the snowplow keeps hitting." "And you're alone with your mother?" "Yes, sir. She was making juice, and then there was a crash, and when I came in she was on the floor, and now she won't wake up." The words came out in a rush, fear making his voice high and thin. "Is she breathing? Can you see her chest moving up and down?" Phoenix returned to his mother's side, phone clutched to his ear as he knelt beside her. "Yes, it's moving, but really slow." "That's good, Phoenix. That's very good." The man's voice had taken on a focused calm that somehow made Phoenix feel safer. "I'm going to help you. I'm going to call an ambulance to come to your house, and then I'm going to stay on the phone with you until they get there. Can you be brave for me?" "Yes, sir," Phoenix whispered, clinging to the calm authority in the stranger's voice. "Good man. Now, is your front door unlocked?" Phoenix thought for a moment. "No. Mom always locks it." "All right. Do you know how to unlock it?" "The paramedics will need to get inside. I can reach the chain if I stand on my block box," Phoenix said, already moving toward the door. "But the deadbolt is hard to turn." "Try your best, Phoenix. I'm going to put you on hold for just a moment while I call for help, but I promise I'll come right back. Don't hang up." "Okay," Phoenix replied, the simple reassurance of the man's voice giving him the courage to keep functioning despite his fear. True to his word, the stranger returned to the line less than a minute later. "Phoenix, I've called an ambulance. They're on their way to you right now. Can you hear any sirens yet?" Phoenix pressed the phone to his ear, listening intently. "No, sir. They'll be there soon. While we wait, can you go check on your mother again? Tell me if she's still breathing." Phoenix carried the phone back to the kitchen, his bare feet avoiding the sticky juice and broken glass with careful steps. "Mom's still asleep," he reported, kneeling beside her. "Her chest is moving up and down." "That's good. That's very good. And is she hurt anywhere that you can see? Any blood or injuries?" Phoenix examined his mother with solemn care. "No blood. Just the juice that spilled. But her face looks funny. Kind of sweaty but also pale." "I understand. You're doing great, Phoenix. What about her medical information? Does your mom take any medicine regularly?" "She has the autoimmune thing," Phoenix said, pronouncing the unfamiliar word carefully. "She takes pills in the morning and at night. The orange bottle is on the counter. Can you see the name on the bottle?" Phoenix stood on tiptoes again, squinting at the prescription label. "It starts with APPRED. I can't read the rest. It's too long." "That's okay. You've been incredibly helpful." The man's voice had an odd quality now, a tension that hadn't been there before. "Phoenix, can I ask you something?" "How old are you?" "I'm 6 3/4, Phoenix answered promptly. "I'll be 7 in October." Another pause, this one heavy with something Phoenix couldn't identify. "And it's just you and your mother at home?" "No. Father or other family. Just us. Grandma lives in Florida, but she's in a wheelchair, so she can't visit much. Mom says we're a team of 2, but that's okay because 2 is the perfect number for a team because you always have someone to count on." The line went so quiet that Phoenix wondered if the connection had been lost. "Hello? Are you still there?" "I'm here," the voice said, sounding slightly strained. "Phoenix, I hear sirens in the background. Can you go to the front door and watch for the ambulance?" Phoenix ran to the window, phone still clutched tightly in his hand. "I see flashing lights. They're coming down our street." "Good. Now remember what we talked about. You need to unlock the door so they can help your mother." Phoenix struggled with the deadbolt, eventually managing to turn it with both hands. He had just unhooked the chain when pounding footsteps reached the porch, followed by an authoritative knock. Paramedics. Is anyone home? I unlocked it. Phoenix called, backing away as the door swung open to reveal two uniformed figures carrying large cases of equipment. Hey there, the female paramedic said, her voice gentle as she knelt to Phoenix's level. You must be the brave young man who called for help. Can you show us where your mom is? Phoenix nodded, pointing toward the kitchen. She's in there. She fell and won't wake up. As the paramedics rushed to Linnea's side, Phoenix returned to the phone. The ambulance people are here now, he reported. They're helping Mom. You did exactly the right thing, Phoenix. I'm very proud of you. The man's voice had softened, warmth replacing the earlier tension. Now, I want you to listen to the paramedics and do whatever they tell you, okay? They're going to take good care of your mother. Are you going to hang up now? Phoenix asked, suddenly reluctant to lose this connection to the kind stranger who had helped him. A brief hesitation. Not if you don't want me to. I can stay on the line until your mother is safely in the ambulance. Thank you. Phoenix's voice was small. What's your name? Another pause, briefer this time. Theron. My name is Theron. Thank you for helping me, Mr. Theron. You're welcome, Phoenix. There was an odd catch in the man's voice. More than welcome. In the sleek corner office of Obsidian Security's Manhattan headquarters, Theron Blackwood sat motionless behind his imposing desk, the phone still pressed to his ear as he listened to the distant sounds of paramedics working. His other hand gripped the edge of his desk, so tightly his knuckles had gone white, his normally impassive face frozen in an expression of stunned disbelief. Phoenix Reeves. Linnea. The timing, 6, almost 7 years. The pieces clicked into place with devastating clarity, forming a picture that threatened the carefully constructed walls of his existence. His executive assistant, Zara, appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. Mr. Blackwood, the Tokyo investors are waiting in the conference room for the quarterly presentation. Should I tell them you'll be another 5 minutes? Theron raised a hand, silently signaling her to wait as he refocused on the phone. Phoenix? What hospital will they be taking your mother to? He listened intently to the child's answer, then spoke with careful control. I understand. Listen, Phoenix, I need to hang up now, but I want you to know that everything is going to be okay. The doctors will take good care of your mother, and the paramedics will make sure you're not alone. After a few more reassurances, Theron finally ended the call, setting his phone down with deliberate precision before looking up at his puzzled assistant. Cancel my meetings for the rest of the day. All of them. Then have the jet prepared for immediate departure to Portland, Maine. Zara's professional composure slipped momentarily. Portland? But the Tokyo delegation has flown in specifically to reschedule them. This is a family emergency. The words felt foreign on his tongue, a concept so long absent from his life that it seemed to belong to someone else entirely. Family, Zara echoed, confusion evident. In 3 years as his assistant, she had never known Theron Blackwood to acknowledge any family beyond his manipulative mother, whom he visited out of obligation twice yearly. Yes. Theron stood, already reaching for his suit jacket. Have legal prepare guardianship paperwork for a minor child. And find me the best autoimmune specialist in New England, someone who can be at Portland General within the hour. Sir, I don't understand. Whose child? Mine. The word hung in the air between them, as surprising to Theron as it clearly was to Zara. It seems I have a son. For hours later, Theron strode through the automatic doors of Portland General Hospital, the controlled chaos of the emergency department parting before him like water around a stone. His tailored suit and commanding presence drew curious glances from staff and patients alike, but his focus remained singular as he approached the information desk. I'm looking for Linnea Reeves, he said, his deep voice measured despite the turmoil beneath. She was brought in by ambulance approximately 2 hours ago. Her son Phoenix should be with her. The receptionist typed rapidly, glancing up at him with professional neutrality. Are you family, sir? The question gave him pause. Was he? Legally, no. Biologically. I'm Phoenix's father. Something in his tone must have conveyed the complexity of the situation, as the receptionist's expression softened slightly. Ms. Reeves is in the ICU, sir. 6th floor, north wing. The boy is in the pediatric waiting area with social services. Social services? Theron's carefully maintained composure slipped. Why? Standard procedure when a minor's guardian is incapacitated and no immediate family is present. She gestured toward the elevators. You'll need to check in at the 6th floor nurses' station. Theron nodded curtly, already moving toward the elevators with long, purposeful strides. The ride to the 6th floor seemed interminable, his mind cycling through scenarios and contingencies with the same analytical precision that had built his security empire. By the time the doors opened, he had formulated at least 3 approaches to the situation, depending on Linnea's condition and Phoenix's reception. What he hadn't prepared for was the visceral impact of seeing Linnea again after nearly 7 years. Through the glass walls of the ICU room, she appeared both achingly familiar and distressingly changed, thinner than he remembered, her vibrant copper hair now cropped short, her normally animated face slack in unconsciousness. Monitors blinked steadily beside her bed, for lines snaking into her arms, the clinical setting a stark contrast to the wild, free-spirited woman who had once filled his life with color and challenge. "Can I help you, sir?" A nurse had materialized at his elbow, her expression politely inquiring, but with the watchful alertness of someone accustomed to guarding vulnerable patients. "I'm here about Linnea Reeves," Theron said, forcing his gaze away from the still figure in the hospital bed. "What's her condition? Are you family?" The same question, the same complicated answer. "I'm the father of her child," he said, the words still strange on his tongue. "Phoenix called me when she collapsed. I flew in from New York to help." The nurse's expression remained professionally neutral, though something, skepticism, perhaps, flickered in her eyes. Ms. Reeves experienced a severe hypoglycemic episode complicated by her autoimmune condition. She's stable now, but sedated while we regulate her system. The doctor can provide more details. "And Phoenix? Where is he?" "The social worker has him in the family waiting room. He's been very brave, but naturally upset. We've been trying to locate next of kin." "I'm here now," Theron said, a note of finality in his voice. "I'd like to see my son." The nurse hesitated, clearly weighing hospital protocol against the authority in his tone. "I'll need to check with social services. If you could wait here." "Mr. Blackwood?" Theron turned to find a slender woman approaching, her professional attire and clipboard marking her as the social worker in question. "Dr. Kessler, from Family Services," she introduced herself. Phoenix mentioned someone named Theron had helped him on the phone. "I assume that's you." "It is." Theron extended his hand, his grip firm. "Theron Blackwood. I came as soon as I heard about Linnea's condition. How is Phoenix holding up?" "Remarkably well, considering. He's a very resilient child." Her assessing gaze was subtle but thorough. "He didn't mention that you were his father, though." "He doesn't know." The admission cost him, each word an acknowledgement of years lost. "Linnea and I, separated before Phoenix was born. I wasn't aware of his existence until today." Dr. Kessler absorbed this with professional calm. "I see. That certainly complicates matters. Without established paternity or guardianship rights, I'm afraid I can't simply release Phoenix into your care, regardless of your biological connection." "I understand," Theron said, though the corporate titan in him bristled at the obstruction. "But surely it would be better for Phoenix to be with his father than to remain with strangers while his mother is incapacitated." "That depends on many factors, Mr. Blackwood. Phoenix's welfare is my primary concern." Her tone remained even, neither confrontational nor apologetic. "Perhaps we could start with a supervised visit. Phoenix has been asking about the phone man who helped him." Theron inclined his head in agreement, recognizing the wisdom of her caution even as impatience burned beneath his skin. "Lead the way." The pediatric waiting area was a bright, cheerful space designed to distract from the anxieties of hospital visits. Colorful murals adorned the walls, toys and books scattered across low tables, a television in the corner playing an animated film with the volume low. In the midst of this carefully constructed cheer, Phoenix sat alone on a blue beanbag chair, small and solemn, his dark curls falling across his forehead as he concentrated on a drawing. Theron stopped in the doorway, momentarily frozen by the sight of the boy. Phoenix had Linnea's delicate features, the same straight nose, the same determined set to his chin, but his coloring was unmistakably Blackwood, the same olive skin, the same thick black hair, the same startlingly blue eyes that Theron saw in the mirror each morning. Eyes that now lifted to meet his with innocent curiosity. "Phoenix," Dr. Kessler said gently, "this is Mr. Blackwood. He's the person who helped you on the phone earlier." Phoenix set down his crayon, studying Theron with a directness that was disconcertingly adult. "You're Mr. Theron?" "I am." Theron moved forward slowly, as if approaching a wild creature that might startle. He crouched down to Phoenix's level, maintaining a respectful distance. "I wanted to come and make sure you and your mother were being taken care of." "Mom's still sleeping," Phoenix said, his voice small but steady. "The doctor said her blood sugar went really low and her immune system got confused and attacked the wrong things. But they're giving her medicine to help." "That's right. The doctors here are very good. They'll take excellent care of your mother." Theron gestured to the drawing on the table. "What are you working on?" Phoenix hesitated, then turned the paper so Theron could see it. A careful rendering of a woman with short copper hair surrounded by what appeared to be pottery bowls. "It's Mom in her studio. I'm going to give it to her when she wakes up so she knows I was thinking about her." The simple statement, delivered with such earnest concern, struck Theron with unexpected force. This child, his child, had grown for 6 years in a world entirely separate from his own, developing thoughts and fears and loves that Theron had played no part in shaping. The realization was both humbling and painful. "That's a thoughtful gift," he said, genuinely impressed by the detail in the drawing. "Your mother will love it." Phoenix studied him with that same direct gaze. "How do you know my mom?" The question hung in the air, deceptively simple, yet impossibly complex. Theron glanced at Dr. Kessler, who watched the interaction with professional interest but offered no guidance. "We knew each other a long time ago," Theron said carefully. "Before you were born. Were you her friend?" "Yes." The word was inadequate for what they had been to each other, but it was true enough. "We were very good friends once." Phoenix considered this, his young face serious. "But not anymore?" "We lost touch," Theron said, the euphemism tasting bitter on his tongue. "People sometimes do that, even when they care about each other." "Like Mommy's friend Cass who moved to California?" Phoenix asked, seeking to contextualize this adult complexity within his limited experience. "Mom says they're still friends in their hearts even though they don't talk anymore." "Something like that," Theron agreed, relieved by the child's provided framework. "But I'm here now, and I want to help you and your mother in any way I can." Phoenix nodded solemnly, accepting this with the adaptability of childhood. "Are you going to stay until Mom wakes up?" "Yes," Theron said, the decision cementing itself with his utterance. "I'm going to stay as long as you need me." The boy seemed satisfied with this, returning to his drawing with renewed focus. Theron remained crouched beside him, watching those small hands create with the same intense concentration Linnea had always brought to her pottery, an inheritance not of blood but of nurture, of years spent watching his mother transform raw clay into art with patient, skilled hands. "He seems comfortable with you," Dr. Kessler observed quietly as she and Theron stepped just outside the waiting area a few minutes later. "That's a good sign." "He's an extraordinary child," Theron said, his gaze still drawn to Phoenix through the doorway. "Calm under pressure, articulate, observant." He managed to call for help and stay focused during a frightening situation that would have paralyzed many adults. "Yes, he's quite remarkable." Dr. Kessler made a note on her clipboard. "Mr. Blackwood, I need to ask, what are your intentions here, beyond this immediate crisis?" The question caught Theron off guard, forcing him to confront uncertainties he had been deliberately avoiding since the moment of recognition. What were his intentions? What could they be, given the circumstances? "I want to establish a relationship with my son," he said finally, the simple truth emerging from the tangle of complications. "And I want to ensure that both he and Linnea have everything they need, both for this medical situation and beyond." "That's commendable," Dr. Kessler acknowledged. "But you should be prepared for resistance. Ms. Reeves has raised Phoenix alone for 6 years. Your sudden appearance will be disruptive, at minimum." "I'm aware." Theron's jaw tightened slightly. "But circumstances have forced this meeting whether any of us were ready or not. The question now is how to move forward in a way that causes the least harm to Phoenix." "I agree," Dr. Kessler said, her professional assessment of him softening slightly. "For tonight, I can arrange temporary emergency guardianship that would allow Phoenix to stay with you rather than entering foster care while his mother is incapacitated. However, this would be contingent on a background check and home safety assessment." "I've taken a suite at the Eastland Hotel," Theron replied. "It can be inspected immediately. As for my background, I've instructed my legal team to provide whatever documentation you require. I assure you, my record is impeccable. Dr. Kessler's raised eyebrows suggested she found his confidence either impressive or off-putting, perhaps both. We'll follow standard protocols, Mr. Blackwood. In the meantime, you're welcome to stay with Phoenix here at the hospital. I imagine he'd appreciate the company. As she walked away, Theron turned back toward the waiting room, his gaze automatically seeking the small figure now curled up on the beanbag chair, crayon still clutched in his hand, as his eyes grew heavy with exhaustion. The sight stirred something protective and fierce within him, an instinct he hadn't known he possessed until this moment. Whatever complications lay ahead, Linnea's inevitable anger, legal battles, the integration of this new reality into his carefully ordered life, Theron knew with absolute certainty that he would not walk away again. Not from that child. Not from his son. The next several hours passed in a blur of administrative procedures, medical updates, and quiet conversation with Phoenix, who drifted in and out of sleep as the evening progressed. Theron had arranged for food to be delivered, gently encouraging the boy to eat something despite his worry. They had settled into an uneasy but functional routine when Dr. Mehta, Linnea's attending physician, sought Theron out. Mr. Blackwood? Ms. Reeves is regaining consciousness. She's asking for Phoenix. Theron nodded, glancing at the now sleeping child curled up on the small sofa, his drawing clutched protectively to his chest. Should I wake him? Not just yet, Dr. Mehta said, her expression carefully neutral. It might be better if you spoke with Ms. Reeves first. She seems confused about your presence here. Understandably, Theron acknowledged, bracing himself for what would inevitably be a difficult encounter. I'll speak with her alone. As he followed Dr. Mehta toward the ICU, Theron found himself mentally rehearsing opening statements, explanations, apologies, all the words he had never expected to have the opportunity to say to Linnea Reeves. None of them seemed adequate for the situation they now found themselves in. These former lovers reunited by the sun, neither had planned, but only one had known. The ICU was quieter now, the nighttime staffing reduced, the lights dimmed to simulate evening for the patients. Linnea's room was at the end of the corridor, the privacy curtains partially drawn. Dr. Mehta gestured for Theron to wait while she entered first, her quiet voice explaining that Linnea had a visitor. From his position just outside, Theron could see Linnea now sitting partially upright, still pale but alert, her green eyes sharp with awareness as she listened to the doctor. Her gaze shifted to the doorway, catching sight of him, and Theron watched as shock, disbelief, and then a cold anger washed across her expressive face. I'll leave you two to talk, Dr. Mehta said, tactfully withdrawing after a final check of Linnea's vital signs. Try to keep it brief, Ms. Reeves. You need rest. As the doctor departed, Theron stepped fully into the room, stopping at a respectful distance from the bed. Up close, the changes in Linnea were more apparent. Fine lines at the corners of her eyes that hadn't been there before, a new scar along her jawline, a weariness beneath her current anger that spoke of long-term struggle. Linnea, he began, his normally confident voice uncharacteristically hesitant. Get out. The words were quiet but razor-edged, each syllable precisely articulated despite her obvious weakness. Get out of my room, out of this hospital, out of our lives. I can't do that. Can't or won't. Her fingers gripped the thin hospital blanket, knuckles white with tension. You had no problem walking away 7 years ago. What's changed, Theron? Bored with your billions? Looking for a new challenge? The bitterness in her voice was justified, he knew, but it still cut deep. Phoenix called me. By accident, when you collapsed. He reached me instead of emergency services. Linnea's anger faltered momentarily, confusion replacing it. That's impossible. He doesn't have your number. I don't have your number. He misdialed. Random chance or fate, or whatever you want to call it. Theron took a careful step closer. He was scared, Linnea. Alone with you unconscious. He did exactly what a child should do. He sought help from an adult. And that adult just happened to be you. Disbelief colored her tone. Out of all the wrong numbers in the world, my son randomly called his father. The father who doesn't even know he exists. The confirmation, so casual, so matter-of-fact, still landed like a physical blow. I didn't know, Theron said quietly. Not until today. Not until I heard his voice, his age, his name. Would it have mattered? Linnea's question was soft but cutting. If you had known I was pregnant when you disappeared, would it have changed anything? Everything, Theron answered without hesitation. It would have changed everything. Linnea's laugh was hollow, disbelieving. Right? The man who couldn't even say goodbye, who changed his number and moved across the country rather than face an actual conversation about our relationship, would have suddenly embraced fatherhood. I would have tried. The inadequacy of the statement hung in the air between them. Linnea, there's so much you don't know about why I left. I don't care why, she interrupted, though the slight tremor in her voice belied her words. Not anymore. What I care about is protecting my son from being hurt the way I was. So whatever you're doing here, whatever grand gesture you're planning, save it. Phoenix and I have managed just fine without you for 6 years. We'll continue to do so. He's my son too, Theron said, the simple declaration landing with the weight of newly discovered truth. Biologically, yes. Legally, no. In every way that matters, in terms of who has loved him, raised him, taught him, been there for every fever and nightmare and milestone, he is entirely mine. Linnea's eyes flashed with protective fury. You don't get to show up now and claim him because of a phone call. The monitor beside her bed began to beep more rapidly, drawing a concerned glance from a passing nurse. Theron recognized the need to de-escalate, to postpone this confrontation until Linnea was stronger. I'm not here to take him from you, he said, deliberately gentling his tone. I'm here because a frightened child called me for help, and I will not abandon him, or you, in this moment of need. Whatever comes after, we can discuss when you're well. There's nothing to discuss. Linnea's voice was growing weaker, her brief surge of anger-fueled energy clearly waning. Phoenix doesn't know who you are, and I intend to keep it that way. He's asking questions, Linnea. Smart, perceptive questions that deserve honest answers. Don't you dare tell him, she warned, struggling to maintain her forceful tone despite her obvious exhaustion. Don't you dare disrupt his life that way. I won't, Theron promised, recognizing the line he shouldn't cross without her consent. Not without your agreement. But this conversation isn't over, Linnea. It's just postponed. She held his gaze for a long moment, her green eyes still capable of seeing through his carefully constructed facades despite the years and hurt between them. Why are you really here, Theron? The truth. The question demanded an answer he was only beginning to formulate himself. Because for the first time in 7 years, I have the chance to do the right thing instead of the expedient thing, and I intend to take it. Linnea's expression remained skeptical, but the fight was leaving her, fatigue winning out over anger. Phoenix is all that matters to me. Remember that before you make any decisions about what the right thing might be. I know. Theron moved toward the door, recognizing that she needed rest more than further confrontation. He's an extraordinary child, Linnea. You've done an amazing job with him. Something flickered across her face then, pride mingled with surprise at the compliment, perhaps, or simple acknowledgement of a truth they both recognized. He is extraordinary, she agreed softly, and he's been the center of my world since the moment I knew he existed. I'd like to bring him to see you, if you're up to it, Theron offered. He's been worried. He made you a drawing. Linnea hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes, I need to see him, to make sure he's okay. I'll get him. Theron paused at the threshold, looking back at the woman who had once been the center of his world, and who, in giving birth to his son, had irrevocably altered the trajectory of his life, whether either of them had known it or not. For what it's worth, Linnea, I am sorry. For all of it. Her expression softened almost imperceptibly. Just bring me my son, Theron. That's all I need from you right now. He nodded and slipped out, his mind already turning to the complex path ahead. Whatever Linnea believed, whatever she wanted, the reality remained unchanged. Phoenix was his son, and Theron Blackwood had never walked away from what was his. Not by choice, at least. The question now was how to build a relationship with his son without destroying what the boy already had, a loving, stable home with a mother who had sacrificed everything to raise him alone. It was a challenge unlike any Theron had faced in business or personal life, with stakes infinitely higher than any corporate acquisition or market expansion. For perhaps the first time in his adult life, Theron Blackwood felt genuinely uncertain about his path forward. But as he approached the waiting area where Phoenix still slept, clutching his drawing of Linnea, one thing became absolutely clear. He would not disappear from his son's life again, regardless of the obstacles Linnea or circumstance might place in his way. 15 minutes later, Theron stood in the doorway of Linnea's hospital room, watching the reunion between mother and son with a complex mix of emotions. Phoenix had practically flown to Linnea's side the moment he saw her awake, his small body trembling with relief as he carefully climbed onto the bed to nestle against her. Linnea's arms encircled him protectively, her face buried in his dark curls, murmuring reassurances that seemed as much for herself as for her child. "I was so scared, Mommy," Phoenix whispered, his voice muffled against her hospital gown. "You wouldn't wake up." "I know, baby. I'm so sorry I scared you." Linnea's eyes met Theron's over their son's head, a silent communication passing between them, gratitude mingled with wariness. "But you did exactly the right thing, getting help." "I called Mr. Theron by accident," Phoenix explained, pulling back slightly to look at his mother's face. "But he helped anyway. He stayed on the phone with me until the ambulance came, and then he flew all the way from New York to make sure we were okay." Linnea's expression tightened briefly before she smoothed it into a smile for Phoenix's benefit. "That was very kind of him. He says you were friends a long time ago." Phoenix glanced back at Theron, including him in the conversation with an innocent openness that contrasted sharply with the tension hanging in the air. "Before I was born." "Yes," Linnea confirmed carefully. "We were friends. Mr. Theron knows lots of things, Mom. He told me about hypoglycemic episodes and autoimmune responses while we were waiting for you to wake up. And he got me chicken nuggets from that place I like, even though it's all the way across town." "Did he?" Linnea's gaze returned to Theron, assessing. "Well, that was thoughtful. The doctor says you have to stay in the hospital tonight," Phoenix continued, his small face creased with concern. "Where will I stay?" "With Imani." Before Linnea could respond, Dr. Kessler appeared beside Theron in the doorway. "Hello, Phoenix. Ms. Reeves. I wanted to discuss overnight arrangements for Phoenix while you're in the hospital." Linnea's arms tightened protectively around her son. "My neighbor Imani Sullivan usually watches Phoenix when I'm unavailable. She's on my emergency contact list." "We've tried reaching Ms. Sullivan," Dr. Kessler explained gently. "She appears to be out of town. Her voicemail mentions a conference in Boston." "Oh, that's right." Linnea's face fell. "I forgot she was presenting at that ceramics symposium this weekend." Her eyes darted to Theron, then away. "What about Reed Archer? He's also on my contact list. He's my studio assistant. We left messages for Mr. Archer as well, but haven't received a response. Given the circumstances, we need to make arrangements for tonight." Dr. Kessler glanced at Theron. "Mr. Blackwood has offered to take responsibility for Phoenix, and as he's identified himself as Phoenix's biological father." "No." Linnea's response was immediate and firm despite her weakened state. "Absolutely not. Theron has no legal relationship with Phoenix. He can't just show up after 6 years and take my son." Theron stepped forward, keeping his voice calm and reasonable. "Linnea, I understand your concerns. But the alternative is Phoenix going into temporary foster care overnight. Surely that's not preferable to him staying with me, where he'd be comfortable and well cared for." "You don't know the first thing about caring for a 6-year-old, Linnea shot back, though uncertainty flickered in her eyes at the mention of foster care. "Perhaps not," Theron acknowledged. "But I'm a quick study, and Phoenix and I have already established a rapport. I've taken a suite at the Eastland with a second bedroom. He'd have his own space, and we're less than 10 minutes from the hospital." Dr. Kessler intervened diplomatically. "Ms. Reeves, I understand this is far from ideal. But for tonight, while you recover, we need a safe placement for Phoenix. Mr. Blackwood has passed our initial background screening, and the hotel suite has been deemed appropriate." Phoenix, who had been following this adult conversation with solemn attention, suddenly spoke up. "I could stay with Mr. Theron, Mom. He's nice, and he promised to bring me back first thing in the morning so we can have breakfast with you." Linnea looked down at her son, then back at Theron, trapped between her instinctive protectiveness and the practical reality of the situation. "I don't have a choice, do I?" "You always have choices," Theron said quietly. "I'm simply offering the one that might be best for Phoenix tonight." After a long moment, Linnea nodded, defeat and exhaustion evident in the slump of her shoulders. "Fine, but I want him back here by 8 tomorrow morning, and I want to talk to him privately before you leave." "Of course." Theron stepped back, giving mother and son space for their goodbye. He exchanged a glance with Dr. Kessler, who nodded approvingly at his handling of the situation before discreetly withdrawing. As Theron waited in the hallway, he could hear the low murmur of Linnea's voice, though not her exact words. Whatever she was saying to Phoenix, it was clearly important to her that it be said without Theron's presence. He respected the boundary, maintaining his distance until Phoenix emerged from the room a few minutes later, backpack in hand. "Mom says I should go with you tonight so she can rest and get better faster," Phoenix announced, his tone suggesting he was repeating what he'd been told, "and that I should tell you if I need anything or if I get scared." "Your mother is right," Theron agreed, offering his hand to the boy. After a brief hesitation, Phoenix took it, his small fingers wrapping trustingly around Theron's larger ones. The simple contact sent an unexpected surge of emotion through Theron, protectiveness, wonder, and a profound sense of connection he hadn't anticipated. "Can we get a book from the gift shop before we go?" Phoenix asked as they walked toward the elevator. "Mom always reads to me before bed." "Of course." Theron squeezed the small hand gently. "Whatever you need." As the elevator doors closed behind them, Theron caught a glimpse of Linnea watching from her doorway, her expression a complex mixture of fear, resignation, and something that might have been hope, had he allowed himself to interpret it that way. But 7 years of separation and the weight of unspoken truths stood between them, and whatever hope might exist would have to withstand the revelations still to come. The Eastland Hotel stood in stark contrast to the modest neighborhood where Phoenix lived with Linnea. Its marble lobby gleamed under crystal chandeliers, the staff moving with practiced efficiency as they welcomed Portland's most discerning visitors. Phoenix's eyes widened as he took in the opulence, his small hand tightening around Theron's as they approached the front desk. "Good evening, Mr. Blackwood," the manager greeted, his deferential tone suggesting Theron's reputation had preceded him. "Everything has been prepared according to your specifications. The second bedroom has been furnished with child-appropriate items, as requested." "Thank you." Theron's response was polite but brief, his attention focused on Phoenix, who was staring at a massive floral arrangement with undisguised fascination. "Is there anything else you need, Phoenix? Are you hungry?" Phoenix considered the question with the same seriousness he seemed to bring to all matters. "No, thank you. I had the chicken nuggets before, but I am kind of tired. Then we'll go up to the suite. You can get settled and perhaps have a bath before bed." In the elevator, Phoenix studied his reflection in the mirrored walls, his expression thoughtful. "Mr. Theron, why do you live in New York instead of here? Mom says Maine is the most beautiful place in the whole world." The innocent question carried heavier implications than the boy could possibly understand. "My work is in New York," Theron answered simply. "But your mother is right. Maine is very beautiful. Do you have kids in New York?" Phoenix asked, his directness startling Theron once again. "No," Theron replied, a strange ache accompanying the word. "I don't have any children." "That seems sad," Phoenix observed with a child's unfiltered honesty. "Mom says having me is her favorite thing that ever happened." The elevator doors opened before Theron needed to formulate a response to this casually devastating statement. They moved down the hallway to the corner suite, Theron swiping the key card with Phoenix still thoughtfully at his side. The suite revealed itself to be a 2-bedroom accommodation with panoramic views of Portland's harbor, tastefully decorated in subdued blues and grays. True to the manager's word, the second bedroom had been hastily but effectively adapted for a child, with a reading lamp beside the bed, a selection of children's books on the nightstand, and even a small stuffed bear propped against the pillows. "Is this all for me?" Phoenix asked, approaching the bear with cautious interest. "Yes. I asked the hotel to make sure you'd be comfortable." Theron watched as Phoenix picked up the bear, examining it with careful fingers. "I hope it's all right. It's nice. Different from my room at home, but nice." Phoenix yawned suddenly, the day's emotional toll finally catching up to him. "Can I have a bath now? Mom always says baths help you relax when you've had a hard day." "Of course." Theron led Phoenix to the bathroom, turning on the water and testing its temperature with the same methodical precision he brought to corporate negotiations. "There are bubbles here, if you'd like some." Phoenix nodded enthusiastically, the first genuinely childlike response Theron had seen from him. "Yes, please. Mom only lets me have bubbles on special days." "Well, I think surviving today qualifies as special. Theron added the bubbles, watching foam rise in the tub. Do you need help? Or? I can do it myself, Phoenix declared with the pride of a child asserting independence. I'm 6 3/4. But Mom usually stays near in case I need something. I'll just be in the next room. Call if you need me. Theron retreated, leaving the door slightly ajar as he heard the sounds of Phoenix undressing and carefully entering the tub. Alone for the first time since the phone call that had upended his life, Theron moved to the suite's window, staring out at the darkened harbor without really seeing it. His mind raced with implications, calculations, contingencies, the habitual patterns of a man accustomed to controlling every variable in his environment. But this situation defied his usual strategic approach. The variables here were emotional, historical, profoundly human in ways that spreadsheets and market analyses couldn't capture. His phone buzzed with a text from Zara. Tokyo investors rescheduled for next week. Legal has prepared preliminary paternity/guardianship documents. How long should we expect you to remain in Portland? How long indeed? An hour ago, Theron would have answered with characteristic precision, until Linnea recovered enough to care for Phoenix, perhaps 2 or 3 days at most. Now, staring at the lights of the unfamiliar city that had been home to his son for 6 years, he found himself unable to provide a definitive timeline. Unknown, he replied. Continue managing operations remotely. Have real estate find suitable long-term accommodations in Portland area. He tucked the phone away as Phoenix's voice called from the bathroom. Mr. Theron? I'm done now. Can you help find a towel? The domesticity of the request, so ordinary, yet so foreign to his experience, struck Theron with unexpected force. He located a plush white towel from the rack and brought it to Phoenix, carefully averting his eyes to give the boy privacy as he stepped from the tub. Do you have pajamas in your backpack? He asked, once Phoenix had wrapped himself in the oversized towel. Yes. Mom packed them just in case I had to stay with someone. Phoenix's voice grew quieter. She gets sick sometimes, so we have a system. The blue bag has my overnight stuff. The matter-of-fact way Phoenix described this contingency planning revealed volumes about their life, the precariousness of Linnea's health, the responsibilities placed on small shoulders, the careful preparations for crises like today's. Theron retrieved the blue bag, finding neatly packed pajamas, a toothbrush, and a small stuffed orca that had clearly been well-loved, its fabric worn from countless nights of comfort. Here you are. He handed the items to Phoenix, who took them with a grateful nod. I'll wait outside while you change. When Phoenix emerged a few minutes later, dressed in blue striped pajamas with his hair still damp from the bath, he looked smaller somehow, more vulnerable. He clutched the orca in one hand and the book they'd purchased from the hospital gift shop in the other. I'm ready for bed now, he announced, though his expression suggested a lingering anxiety. But, could you read to me first? Mom always reads one chapter before sleep. I'd be happy to. Theron followed Phoenix to the bedroom, watching as the boy climbed into the large bed that dwarfed his small frame. The scene was so far removed from Theron's usual evening routine of market reports and strategy calls that it felt almost surreal. This child, his child, looking up at him expectantly, waiting for a bedtime story. Theron sat carefully on the edge of the bed, taking the offered book. It was a children's novel about a young explorer who discovered a hidden island of unusual creatures. Chapter 1. He began, his deep voice filling the quiet room. The Unexpected Journey. As he read, Phoenix's body gradually relaxed, his eyes growing heavy though he fought to keep them open. By the chapter's end, he was blinking slowly, the orca clutched tightly to his chest. That was a good chapter, he murmured sleepily. Do you think Miranda will find her way home? I think she will, Theron replied, setting the book aside. Though perhaps not in the way she expects. Phoenix nodded sagely, as if this aligned with his own assessment. That's what Mom says about adventures. The best ones change you, so home looks different when you get back. Your mother is very wise. Theron hesitated, then added, she'll be better soon, Phoenix. The doctors are taking excellent care of her. I know. Phoenix's voice was fading as sleep overtook him. Mom's strong. That's what Reed says. She's the strongest person he knows. Reed, Mom's friend from the pottery studio. He helps her when she gets sick. Phoenix's eyes drifted closed, then opened again with visible effort. Are you going to leave when Mom gets better? Go back to New York. The question hung in the air between them, laden with implications Phoenix couldn't possibly understand. Theron found himself unable to offer the simple reassurance the moment called for, the truth too complex for a child's bedtime. "Let's not worry about that tonight," he said instead. "For now, you should sleep. We'll see your mother first thing in the morning." Phoenix seemed to accept this non-answer, his eyes finally closing as exhaustion claimed him. "Good night, Mr. Theron," he mumbled. "Thank you for helping us." "Good night, Phoenix." Theron remained seated on the bed's edge, watching the steady rise and fall of his son's chest, the peaceful expression that came with childhood sleep. Without conscious thought, his hand moved to smooth a dark curl from Phoenix's forehead, the gesture oddly natural despite its unfamiliarity. "You're welcome," he whispered, though Phoenix was already asleep and couldn't hear him. "More than welcome." Long after Phoenix had fallen asleep, Theron sat in the suite's living area, his laptop open but largely ignored as his mind worked through the day's revelations. He had a son, a bright, thoughtful, resilient son who had been growing and learning and living just a few hours' flight from New York all these years, without Theron's knowledge or participation. The loss of those years struck him with physical pain. First steps he hadn't witnessed, first words he hadn't heard, birthdays and achievements and ordinary moments that could never be reclaimed. But beneath that grief lay a more complex emotion, anger at being denied those experiences, mingled with a reluctant acknowledgement that Linnea's reasons for keeping Phoenix from him might have been justified. He thought back to their relationship, to the passionate but volatile connection that had drawn them together despite their different worlds. Linnea had been everything Theron wasn't, spontaneous where he was methodical, expressive where he was reserved, artistic where he was analytical. They had complemented each other, challenged each other, loved each other with an intensity that had surprised them both. Until he'd walked away. The memory of their final weeks together still carried the sting of unresolved conflict. His mother's interference, Linnea's increasing frustration with his work hours, the ultimatum that had seemed impossible to navigate at the time. He had made the choice that seemed logical then, sacrificing personal happiness for professional security, walking away cleanly rather than prolonging a relationship he believed was destined to fail. Only it hadn't been clean. Linnea had been pregnant, unknowingly carrying their child, while Theron disappeared from her life without explanation or contact information. No wonder she had greeted his reappearance with such visceral anger. Yet something didn't align with his recollections. Linnea had spoken of him changing his number, moving across the country to avoid her. But he had left his number unchanged for months after their breakup, half hoping she would call despite his resolution to move on. And while he had eventually relocated to New York, it had been for legitimate business reasons, not to escape a relationship already ended. The discrepancy nagged at him, suggesting there were pieces of this puzzle he still couldn't see. But whatever misunderstandings or manipulations might have separated them 7 years ago, the reality now was clear. Phoenix existed, and Theron could not, walk away again. His phone buzzed with an update from the hospital. Ms. Reeves stable, resting comfortably. The simple message provided enough reassurance for Theron to finally seek his own rest, though he left both bedroom doors ajar in case Phoenix needed him during the night. Morning arrived with golden lights streaming through the suite's eastern windows and the unexpected sound of childish humming from the second bedroom. Theron, who had been awake and working for over an hour, found Phoenix sitting cross-legged on his bed, carefully arranging the stuffed bear and orca in what appeared to be an important conversation. "Good morning," Theron said, pausing in the doorway. "Did you sleep well?" Phoenix looked up, his solemn face brightening. "Yes, thank you. The bed was really big and bouncy. I already brushed my teeth and got dressed, because we're going to see Mom for breakfast, right?" "That's right. We'll leave in about 20 minutes. Theron noted that Phoenix had indeed dressed himself in clothes from his backpack, jeans, and a t-shirt featuring what appeared to be minerals and gemstones with their scientific names. "You like rocks, I see." "Uh-huh. Mom says I've been collecting them since I could walk. I have a whole classification system at home. Igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary, and then subcategories by mineral content and formation process." The precision of this description, delivered in a child's high voice but with scientific accuracy, sent a surge of pride through Theron. This methodical approach to collecting was distinctly reminiscent of his own childhood obsession with computer systems, categorized by processing capability and application potential. "That's impressive," Theron said, meaning it sincerely. "Perhaps you could show me your collection sometime." Phoenix's face lit with unexpected enthusiasm. "Really? Most grown-ups think rocks are boring. Except Mom and Reed, but I think Reed just pretends because he likes Mom." This casual observation, delivered with a child's innocent perception, caught Theron's attention. "Reed is your mother's friend? He helps at the studio. He's teaching me how to throw clay on the wheel, but my hands aren't strong enough yet for the big pieces." Phoenix slid off the bed, carefully placing his stuffed animals in his backpack. "He comes for dinner a lot. Sometimes he stays really late, and they talk about art stuff after I go to bed." Theron absorbed this information with outward neutrality, though something sharp and primitive twisted in his chest. The rational part of his mind acknowledged that Linnea had every right to build a life that included relationships with other men. The less rational part, the part that had once claimed Linnea as his own, bristled at the thought of this Reed person sharing meals at their table, influencing his son, perhaps becoming more than a colleague to Linnea. "Ready to go?" he asked, pushing aside these unproductive thoughts. "We should stop for flowers on the way. People usually bring flowers when visiting hospitals. Mom likes wildflowers best," Phoenix offered helpfully. "She says store flowers try too hard, and wild ones just are what they are." That sounded exactly like Linnea, the same woman who had once dragged Theron on an impromptu hike to see a particular meadow in bloom, insisting that beauty stumbled upon was more meaningful than beauty arranged for display. He had found her perspective baffling then, having been raised in environments where everything was carefully curated for maximum effect. Now he found himself oddly nostalgic for that unfiltered authenticity. "Wildflowers it is," he agreed, offering his hand. "Shall we?" Phoenix took it without hesitation this time, his trust already growing despite their brief acquaintance. As they left the suite, Theron felt the weight of that trust like a physical responsibility, one he was determined not to betray, regardless of what complications lay ahead with Linnea. The hospital room looked different in morning light, less clinical somehow, with sunlight streaming through the blinds and the machines beside Linnea's bed reduced in number. Linnea herself appeared markedly improved, sitting up against the pillows with color in her cheeks, and her copper hair neatly combed. She was wearing what appeared to be her own pajamas rather than a hospital gown, a small but significant assertion of personal dignity. Her expression when they entered was a study in contrasts, lighting with genuine joy at the sight of Phoenix, then cooling to cautious neutrality when her gaze shifted to Theron. He noted her quick, assessing scan of their son, checking for any signs of distress or discomfort from the night away. "Mom," Phoenix rushed to her bedside, forgetting his usual careful demeanor in his excitement to see her. "You look so much better. We brought you wildflowers from the park. They're beautiful, Phoenix." "Thank you." Linnea accepted the slightly crushed bouquet with genuine appreciation, though her eyes flickered to Theron with a silent question. "He specifically requested wildflowers," Theron explained, remaining near the doorway to give them space. "Said you preferred them to store-bought arrangements." Something like surprise crossed Linnea's face, perhaps at Theron's willingness to follow Phoenix's suggestion, or perhaps at the reminder that her son knew her preferences so well. "He's right," she acknowledged. "Thank you. Did you have a good sleep, Mom?" "I did. The hotel has really bouncy beds, and Mr. Theron read me a whole chapter of the Island book, and this morning we had pancakes from room service." Phoenix's words tumbled out in his eagerness to share his experiences, and Mr. Theron said maybe he could see my rock collection sometime. I told him about my classification system. Linnea's eyebrows rose slightly at this last detail, her gaze returning to Theron with increased wariness. "Did he now? Dr. Mehta said you might be discharged this afternoon," Theron said, deliberately shifting the conversation to neutral territory. "I've arranged for a car to take you both home whenever you're ready." "That's not necessary. Reed is picking us up." Linnea's tone was polite but firm, establishing boundaries. "He texted this morning. He was at a clay firing workshop with poor cell reception, which is why he didn't get the hospital's messages yesterday." "I see." Theron accepted this information with outward equanimity, though he noted the hint of defensiveness in her explanation. Nevertheless, The offer stands if your plans change. An awkward silence descended, broken only by Phoenix's cheerful obliviousness as he arranged the wildflowers in a plastic cup he'd filled with water from the bathroom sink. Linnea and Theron regarded each other across the hospital room, the weight of unspoken history and uncertain future hanging between them. "Phoenix," Linnea said finally, "could you please go ask the nurse for some breakfast menus? I'm actually quite hungry this morning." "Okay." Clearly pleased with this sign of his mother's recovery, Phoenix bounded toward the door, then paused to look back at Theron. "Are you staying for breakfast too, Mr. Theron?" The question placed Theron in a diplomatic dilemma, with Phoenix's hopeful expression colliding against Linnea's barely concealed tension. "I think your mother and I need to talk privately for a few minutes," he said carefully. "Adult conversation, but I won't leave without saying goodbye." This seemed to satisfy Phoenix, who nodded seriously before slipping out to find the nurse. As soon as he was gone, Linnea's composed expression faltered, revealing the strain beneath. "What are you really doing here, Theron?" she asked quietly. "And don't give me that line about doing the right thing. We both know you've always defined right as whatever serves your interests." "That's not fair, Linnea." "Fair?" She laughed, the sound brittle. "Was it fair to disappear without a word? To change your number and ignore my attempts to contact you? To leave me wondering what I'd done wrong, what fatal flaw I'd revealed that made you discard me so completely?" Her words confirmed the discrepancy Theron had noted in his own recollections. "I never changed my number," he said slowly. "And you never tried to contact me. I would have remembered." Linnea stared at him, disbelief evident. "I called you dozens of times. Your number was disconnected within a week of you leaving. I went to your apartment and found it emptied, no forwarding address. I even tried emailing the company account, but those bounced too. That's not possible." Theron's mind raced, reviewing the sequence of events from 7 years earlier. "I kept the same number for months after I left. I didn't move to New York until Obsidian secured its first major corporate client almost 6 months later." "You're lying." But uncertainty had crept into Linnea's voice. "Why would you maintain the pretense after all this time?" "I'm not pretending. Someone deliberately cut off communication between us, but it wasn't me." Theron moved closer to the bed, his expression intent. "Linnea, when exactly did you discover you were pregnant?" 3 weeks after you left. I had been feeling unwell, but assumed it was just stress from everything." She looked away, the memory clearly still painful. "I tried calling you immediately. That's when I discovered your number was disconnected." 3 weeks, Theron repeated, his voice hardening as pieces clicked into place. "Exactly when my mother visited from Boston." "Your mother?" Linnea's confusion was evident. "What does Vivian have to do with this?" "Everything, potentially." Theron rarely allowed himself to display anger, but it simmered beneath his controlled exterior now. "She never approved of our relationship. Thought you were a distraction from my potential. She visited right after our breakup, supposedly to check on me. Had access to my apartment, my phone, my computer." Understanding dawned slowly on Linnea's face, followed by a wave of something more complex, rage, perhaps, or grief for 7 years of unnecessary separation. "Are you saying your mother deliberately prevented me from telling you about the pregnancy?" "It fits her pattern." Theron's voice was grim. "She's manipulated situations throughout my life when she felt I was making choices that didn't align with her vision for my future. But this would be beyond anything she's done before." "She knew," Linnea whispered, the color draining from her face. "She must have known I was trying to reach you about the pregnancy, that I needed to tell you about your child. If she did, she never shared that information with me." Theron's jaw tightened. "I swear to you, Linnea, I had no idea you were pregnant. No idea Phoenix existed until yesterday." They stared at each other across the hospital room, 7 years of misunderstanding and separate grief suddenly illuminated by this new possibility. The silence between them hummed with implications, for their past, certainly, but more importantly for their future and Phoenix's. "Even if what you're saying is true," Linnea said finally, "it doesn't change the fact that you left in the first place. You walked away from what we had without explanation, without giving us a chance to work through whatever was wrong." "I know." Theron didn't attempt to defend himself on this point. "That choice was mine, and I've regretted it for 7 years." "Have you?" Skepticism edged her tone. "You've built an empire in those years. become one of the youngest billionaires in tech. Doesn't seem like a man consumed with regret. Success and regret aren't mutually exclusive, Linnea. I could be Midas himself and still recognize what I lost when I left you. Theron moved to the window, giving himself a moment to regulate his emotions before continuing. But you're right that my leaving is separate from what came after. And you had every right to build a life without me, to raise Phoenix as you saw fit. But now you're here, Linnea stated, the simple fact hanging between them. And you know about Phoenix. Yes. What exactly do you want, Theron? The directness that had always characterized Linnea emerged now, cutting through pretense. Visitation? Shared custody? A relationship with a son who doesn't even know you're his father? All of it, Theron admitted, turning back to face her. But I recognize those aren't decisions to be made hastily or unilaterally. Phoenix's welfare comes first. On that, at least, we agree. Linnea studied him with the same intense focus she'd always brought to her art, seeing beyond surfaces to the essence beneath. You know this isn't as simple as writing a check or hiring lawyers. This is a child's life, his sense of identity and security. Whatever happened between us, Phoenix has been raised in stability and love. I won't allow anything to disrupt that. Nor would I want to. Theron matched her directness with his own. But he deserves to know his father, Linnea. To have both parents in his life if possible. Surely you can see that. Before Linnea could respond, the door opened to reveal Phoenix returning with a breakfast menu and a triumphant expression. The nurse says you can have anything you want, Mom. Even the chocolate chip pancakes that are usually just for kids. The adults' serious conversation dissolved in the face of Phoenix's enthusiasm, both of them instinctively shifting to protect him from the weight of their discussion. Yet as Theron watched Linnea interact with their son, her gentle corrections of his excited table bouncing, her genuine interest in his detailed description of the hotel room, her subtle checks of his emotional state after the night away, he recognized that whatever path forward they found would have to honor the bond between mother and child that had sustained them both for 6 years. The question was whether there was room in that carefully constructed life for the father who had just discovered its existence. 2 days later, Theron stood on the porch of a modest craftsman bungalow on Laurel Lane, a carefully selected gift in one hand as he rang the doorbell with the other. The blue house with the crooked mailbox looked exactly as Phoenix had described it during their phone call, right down to the large oak tree dominating the front yard and the collection of smooth stones lining the garden path. The door opened to reveal not Linnea or Phoenix, but a tall, lanky man with paint-spattered jeans and a wary expression. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Linnea and Phoenix," Theron replied, his tone neutral despite the immediate recognition that this must be Reed, the studio assistant who came for dinner a lot, according to Phoenix. "I believe I'm expected." "Oh." Reed's expression shifted from wariness to recognition. "You must be Theron. Phoenix hasn't stopped talking about you since Linnea brought him home from the hospital." His tone suggested this wasn't necessarily a positive development. "I'm Reed Archer. I work with Linnea at the studio." "Yes, Phoenix mentioned you." Theron extended his hand with ingrained politeness, hiding his assessment of this man who had clearly assumed a protective role in Linnea and Phoenix's lives. Theron Blackwood. Reed's handshake was firm, his artist's hands calloused but strong. "I know who you are. Hard to miss the billionaire tech CEO who suddenly appears in our quiet corner of Portland." Before Theron could respond to this not-quite-friendly observation, Phoenix's voice called from inside the house. "Is that Mr. Theron? Mom said he was coming at 4. Reed stepped back from the doorway, allowing Phoenix to burst onto the porch with characteristic enthusiasm. The boy was wearing what appeared to be safety goggles pushed up on his forehead and had clay smudged on one cheek. "You came. I wasn't sure you would because you're probably really busy with important business things." Phoenix's genuine delight at seeing him again caught Theron off guard. "Did you bring your rock for identification? I have all my reference materials ready." During their phone conversation the previous day, arranged with Linnea's cautious permission, Theron had mentioned finding an unusual stone near his hotel and wondering if Phoenix might help identify it. The request had been partially strategic, giving them a shared activity for this first post-hospital visit, but also genuinely motivated by Theron's desire to engage with his son's interests. "I did." Theron produced a small velvet pouch from his pocket, carefully removing a polished stone with distinctive banding. It was near the harbor path. I thought perhaps it might be interesting for your collection. Phoenix accepted the stone with reverent hands, examining it with scientific seriousness. This is an agate. See the banding pattern? And the translucent quality when you hold it up to light? Agates form in volcanic rocks when water carrying silica flows through cavities and gradually deposits layers of mineral. This one has really nice color variations. The detailed explanation, delivered with such authority by a 6-year-old, drew a smile from Reed despite his evident reservations about Theron. He's been teaching us all about geology since he got that rocks and minerals book for his birthday, Reed explained. Linnea had to institute a 3 rock facts per conversation rule at dinner to ensure we occasionally discussed other topics. It's a fascinating subject, Theron replied, genuinely impressed by Phoenix's knowledge. I'd like to hear more about your collection, if that's all right. Come see it. Phoenix grabbed Theron's hand, pulling him into the house with surprising strength. It's organized by type in my special display case that Reed built for me. As Theron allowed himself to be led through the modest but charming home, he was acutely aware of Reed following behind, a self-appointed guardian monitoring this interaction. The house itself revealed much about Linnea's life these past 7 years, walls adorned with local artwork, shelves filled with books on art and nature, pottery pieces of evident quality displayed alongside children's crayon drawings. It was warm, lived in, reflecting both creativity and the practical adaptations of raising a child alone. Phoenix's bedroom continued this theme, with scientific posters alongside whimsical paintings, a small desk covered in books and papers, and the promised display case, a beautifully crafted wooden cabinet with glass-fronted drawers, each containing carefully labeled specimens. This is my metamorphic section, Phoenix explained, pulling open a drawer to reveal dozens of stones arranged with museum-like precision. And here are my favorites that I collected from special places. This one is from the day Mom and I went to Acadia National Park. And this one Reed found in the clay quarry and said reminded him of me because it has all these different colors mixed together. As Phoenix continued his enthusiastic tour, Theron noted the many references to shared experiences with Linnea and Reed, outings, discoveries, inside jokes that had built the framework of his son's life. There was no bitterness in these observations, just the sobering recognition of all he had missed, all the moments that could never be reclaimed. Phoenix, honey. Linnea's voice came from the doorway. Remember what we talked about? Mr. Theron might not want a complete catalog of every rock you own. Theron turned to find Linnea leaning against the doorframe, her expression guarded but not hostile. She looked better than she had in the hospital, still pale, perhaps, but steady on her feet and dressed in simple jeans and a paint-spattered button-down that he suspected might actually be Reed's from the way it hung on her smaller frame. It's fine, Theron assured her. I'm enjoying the education. Well, perhaps you could continue it in the living room? I've made some tea, and we should probably talk. Linnea's tone made it clear that this wasn't merely a social suggestion. Phoenix looked between the adults with the perceptiveness that continued to surprise Theron. Is this going to be grown-up talk? Because Reed said he could take me to the studio to finish my clay project if you and Mr. Theron needed to talk privately. The coordination between Linnea and Reed was evident in this arrangement, suggesting they had discussed how to handle Theron's visit in advance. The implication that Reed had enough authority in the household to make such plans with Phoenix stirred that primitive discomfort in Theron again, though he kept his expression neutral. That would be helpful, Phoenix, Linnea confirmed. But Mr. Theron came to visit you, so it's up to him if he's ready for you to go with Reed now, or if he'd prefer you stay a bit longer. The diplomatic handling of this potential conflict, acknowledging Theron's interest in spending time with Phoenix while maintaining parental authority, impressed Theron despite his reservations about Reed's involvement. Perhaps Phoenix could show me one more special rock from his collection before he leaves? Theron suggested, threading the needle between the adult's agenda and his son's evident enthusiasm. Then we adults can have our discussion, and Phoenix can finish his art project. Phoenix beamed at this compromise, immediately diving into his collection to select a particularly meaningful specimen. The detailed explanation that followed, involving a camping trip, a thunderstorm, and what appeared to be a significant moment of bonding between Linnea and Phoenix, provided Theron with another glimpse into the life his son had lived without him. When Reed finally departed with Phoenix in tow, promising to have him back for dinner, Theron found himself alone with Linnea for the first time since their hospital conversation. She led him to the small but comfortable living room, where a tea service waited on the coffee table, another domestic detail that spoke to the life she had built here. "Thank you for indulging his rock obsession," Linnea said as she poured tea into mismatched mugs that Theron suspected were her own creations. "Once he gets started, it can be hard to redirect him." "I wasn't indulging him. I find his enthusiasm and knowledge genuinely impressive." Theron accepted the offered mug, noting the perfect ergonomic fit of the handle, a small but significant indicator of Linnea's craftsmanship. "He's remarkable, Linnea. You've done an extraordinary job with him." The compliment seemed to catch her off guard, her guard lowering momentarily. "He came that way, I think. Curious and passionate, and strangely old-souled from the beginning." A small, private smile crossed her face. "Though the rock fixation is relatively new. Before that it was deep-sea creatures. I learned more about anglerfish and giant squid than I ever thought possible." The glimpse of shared parental amusement faded quickly as Linnea straightened, her expression becoming more businesslike. "But you didn't come here to discuss Phoenix's scientific interests. You want to talk about what happens next?" "Yes." Theron set his mug down, matching her directness. "I've rented a house in Portland. Not far from here, actually. I'll be staying indefinitely." "Indefinitely," Linnea repeated, absorbing the implications. "And your billion-dollar company? Your life in New York can be managed remotely, at least for the immediate future. I've already set the necessary arrangements in motion." "Just like that? You uproot your entire existence because of a phone call from a child you didn't know existed until 3 days ago?" "Yes." The simplicity of Theron's answer seemed to unsettle Linnea more than any elaborate explanation might have. "He's my son, Linnea." "Biologically," she countered, though with less heat than at the hospital. "But parenthood is more than DNA. It's thousands of diaper changes and middle-of-the-night fevers, and knowing exactly which stuffed animal is needed for sleep. It's being there, consistently, day after day." "I know." Theron accepted the implicit criticism without defensiveness. "And I can never recover those years or experiences. But I can be here now, and tomorrow, and the day after that. I can build a relationship with Phoenix from this point forward, if you'll allow it. And if I don't," the challenge was direct, testing, "then I'll pursue legal options, though I would vastly prefer not to take that route." Theron met her gaze steadily. "I have rights, Linnea. Rights I didn't know to exercise until now, but rights nonetheless. You drag us through court battles? Put Phoenix through the trauma of legal proceedings and custody disputes." Her voice rose slightly, the first crack in her composed facade. "I would exhaust every avenue of reasonable negotiation before considering such measures," Theron clarified. "But I won't simply walk away from my son because it's complicated or because you have reservations about my involvement in his life." Linnea studied him, her artist's eye searching for truth beneath his words. "You've changed," she said finally. "The Theron I knew would have approached this like any other business challenge, identifying leverage, calculating optimal outcomes, applying strategic pressure. I'm still that person in many contexts," Theron acknowledged. "But this isn't business. This is family." The word hung between them, at once simple and monumentally complex. Linnea's expression softened fractionally, though wariness remained. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked, her tone more measured now. "Scheduled visitation? Shared holidays? How do you envision this working without disrupting Phoenix's life?" "I think we should start small. Regular visits, perhaps a standing weekly dinner, occasional outings on weekends. Nothing that dramatically alters Phoenix's routine or your authority as his primary parent." Theron paused, then addressed the elephant in the room. "And at some point, when you feel it's appropriate, I would like him to know that I'm his father." Linnea flinched slightly at this last statement, her hand tightening around her mug. "That's not a small step, Theron. That's fundamentally changing how he sees himself, his family, his entire life story." "Yes," Theron agreed quietly. "But it's also the truth. And Phoenix strikes me as a child who values truth, who categorizes and organizes his world based on accurate information. Withholding this particular truth from him indefinitely seems inconsistent with the respect you clearly show him in other areas." The observation landed with visible impact. Linnea set down her mug, running a hand through her copper hair in a gesture of frustration Theron remembered from years ago. "You don't fight fair," she muttered. "You never did." "I'm not trying to fight at all, Linnea. I'm trying to find a path forward that honors Phoenix's needs, your role in his life, and yes, my desire to be his father in more than just biology." "And what about when you get bored?" The question emerged suddenly, raw with old pain. "When the novelty wears off and being a part-time dad to a 6-year-old interferes with your corporate conquests or your social life. What happens when you walk away again? Only this time leaving Phoenix with questions I can't answer and pain I can't heal." The fear behind her anger was suddenly, starkly visible, not just the protective instinct of a mother, but the lingering wound of the woman who had been abandoned once before. Theron recognized that whatever arrangement they might reach would have to address not only the pragmatic aspects of co-parenting, but also this fundamental breach of trust that still shaped Linnea's every interaction with him. "I won't walk away," he said, infusing the words with all the conviction he felt. "Not from Phoenix. Not ever. I will sign any legal document, make any promise, offer any guarantee you need to believe that." Words, Linnea dismissed, though her tone lacked certainty. "Just words. Then judge me by actions." Theron leaned forward, intensity in every line of his body. "Give me the chance to prove, day by day, that I am committed to being in Phoenix's life consistently and responsibly. If I fail, if I miss commitments or prioritize work over him or show any sign of wavering, then you'll have every right to restrict my access and protect him from further disappointment." Linnea was silent for a long moment, weighing his proposal against her deep-seated mistrust. Finally, she sighed, a sound of reluctant capitulation. 2 dinners a week. 1 weekend afternoon outing. All contingent on Phoenix's comfort level and my assessment of how he's handling the changes. The terms were more generous than Theron had dared hope for, suggesting that beneath Linnea's protective armor, she recognized Phoenix's potential benefit from having his father in his life. "Thank you," he said simply. "I won't give you reason to regret this decision. As for telling him who you really are," Linnea's voice faltered slightly. "Not yet. Let him get to know you first. Build a relationship that isn't complicated by expectations or obligations. When the time is right, and I'll know when that is, we'll tell him together." "Agreed." Theron nodded, accepting her expertise in this area without challenge. "On your timeline, with your guidance." Something like surprise flickered across Linnea's face at his easy acquiescence. "You really have changed," she observed again, this time with a hint of wonder rather than accusation. "The Theron I knew would never have ceded control so readily." "The Theron you knew wasn't a father," he replied simply. "Some priorities transcend old habits." Their conversation might have continued in this more conciliatory vein had the front door not burst open at that moment, revealing Phoenix and Reed returning far earlier than expected. Phoenix's face was pale beneath smudges of clay, his expression distressed as Reed carried him into the living room. "What happened?" Linnea was on her feet instantly, maternal alarm replacing all other concerns. "He fell at the studio," Reed explained, settling Phoenix gently on the sofa. "Tripped over a clay bin and hit his arm pretty hard. I think it might be sprained, possibly fractured." "It really hurts, Mom," Phoenix admitted, tears welling in his usually stoic eyes. "I try to be brave, but it keeps getting worse." Theron moved forward automatically, paternal instinct overriding his guest status. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward Phoenix's clearly swollen wrist. At Linnea's nod, he knelt beside the sofa, examining the injury with gentle fingers. "Definitely needs medical attention. The wrist is swelling significantly, and there's unusual mobility in the joint." "I'll get my keys," Linnea said, already moving toward the entryway. "Reed, can you grab Phoenix's health insurance card from my desk? It's in the blue folder." "I can drive," Theron offered, reading the strain in Linnea's still recovering body. "My car is right outside, and you're still regaining your strength." For a moment, he thought she might refuse from sheer protective instinct. But practicality won out as Phoenix whimpered again, clutching his injured arm. "All right," she agreed. "But I'm coming with you." "Of course." Theron turned to Phoenix, keeping his voice calm and reassuring. "We're going to get that arm looked at, Phoenix. The doctors will help with the pain very soon. Can you be brave for just a little longer?" Phoenix nodded, tears streaking through the clay dust on his cheeks. Will they have to cut my arm off? Despite the seriousness of the situation, Theron felt his lips twitch at the dramatic question. Absolutely not. They'll probably take some pictures of the bones with an X-ray machine, and then they might put a cast on it if anything is broken. Nothing scary, I promise. Have you broken bones before? Phoenix asked, momentarily distracted from his pain by this new line of inquiry. Several, Theron confirmed as he carefully helped Phoenix to his feet. My arm when I was 9, falling from a tree. 2 fingers playing basketball in college. A rather embarrassing incident with a skateboard I was definitely too old to be attempting to ride. The small glimpses into Theron's own childhood and mishaps seemed to comfort Phoenix, humanizing the imposing figure he presented. By the time they reached Theron's rented luxury SUV, Phoenix was asking detailed questions about the healing process of bones rather than focusing on his pain. I've got his insurance information, Reed said, joining them outside with the documents. Do you want me to come along? I can follow in my car. We'll be fine, Linnea assured him, though Theron noted the brief touch of her hand against Reed's arm, a small gesture of appreciation and connection. Thanks for bringing him home so quickly. Call me when you know anything, Reed instructed, his concern evident as he helped Phoenix into the back seat. And don't forget to take your evening medication. It's already on the kitchen counter. The domestic intimacy of these exchanges, Reed's knowledge of Linnea's medication schedule, his easy authority in their household dynamic, registered with Theron even as he focused on the more pressing concern of Phoenix's injury. Whatever role Reed played in their lives was clearly significant, a complication Theron would need to navigate carefully in the days ahead. As they pulled away from the house, Phoenix securely buckled in the back seat with Linnea beside him. Theron caught Reed watching them from the porch, his expression a complex mixture of concern and something that might have been resignation. The implications of that look, the recognition that the careful equilibrium of their small family unit had been permanently altered by Theron's arrival, would have to be addressed eventually. But for now, as he drove swiftly but carefully toward the nearest emergency room, Theron's priorities were crystal clear. Phoenix's well-being first, everything else second. It was perhaps the most straightforward objective he had faced in years, uncomplicated by corporate strategy or market considerations, simply a father's instinctive need to protect his child from pain. The simplicity of that motivation and the clarity it brought to his normally complex decision-making process felt like a revelation. Whatever challenges lay ahead in building a relationship with Phoenix and negotiating co-parenting with Linnea, this moment had shown him the essence of fatherhood in its most distilled form, being present when needed, offering strength and comfort without condition or calculation. It was, Theron realized with sudden certainty, the most important role he would ever assume, regardless of his corporate achievements or financial empire. And he was determined to fulfill it with the same excellence and commitment he had brought to every other significant endeavor in his life, but with one crucial difference. This time, failure was not an option. The emergency room waiting area buzzed with the controlled chaos typical of Saturday evenings, minor sports injuries, weekend accidents, and the occasional more serious case, creating a mosaic of human vulnerability. Theron sat between Linnea and Phoenix, the three of them forming an unlikely family unit as they awaited the radiologist's report on Phoenix's x-rays. "Will I get a cast, Mom?" Phoenix asked, his initial fear now replaced by a sort of scientific fascination with his own injury. The pain medication administered upon arrival had clearly taken effect, leaving him more curious than distressed. Johnny Weston broke his leg last year, and everybody signed his cast with different colored markers. It was really cool. "We'll see what the doctor says," Linnea replied, stroking his hair with gentle fingers. "Not everyone with a hurt wrist needs a cast. Sometimes it's just a special bandage called a splint. But a cast would be better for my research," Phoenix argued with impeccable 6-year-old logic. "I could document the healing process and compare it to the bone regeneration information in my human body book." Theron found himself smiling despite the circumstances. "Always the scientist," he observed quietly to Linnea. "He approaches everything as a learning opportunity." "He gets that from you," Linnea said, then looked startled at her own admission. "The analytical mindset, I mean. The way he categorizes and studies everything. I certainly didn't give him that gene." The casual acknowledgement of their shared contribution to Phoenix's character, The first Linnea had volunteered felt like a small but significant step toward a more cooperative dynamic. Theron accepted it without comment, knowing better than to draw attention to what might have been an unintended concession. Phoenix Reeves. A nurse appeared with a clipboard, beckoning them forward. The doctor would like to discuss the X-ray results. They followed her to a small consultation room where Dr. Fraser, a young physician with kind eyes and an efficient manner, displayed Phoenix's X-rays on a light board. "Good news and slightly less good news," she announced, pointing to a visible line across one of the small bones in Phoenix's wrist. "This is what we call a greenstick fracture, a partial break common in children because their bones are still relatively flexible. The good news is that it's a clean break that should heal completely with proper immobilization." "And the less good news?" Linnea asked, her hand finding Phoenix's uninjured one. "The location means we do need a proper cast, not just a splint, and he'll need to wear it for about 6 weeks. Dr. Fraser turned to Phoenix with a smile. "Which means no swimming or pottery making for a while, young man. But you'll get to pick the color of your cast, and it won't interfere with most of your regular activities once you adjust to it." 6 weeks. Phoenix's face fell momentarily before brightening again. "That's perfect for a longitudinal study of bone healing. Can I get a clear cast so I can see what happens underneath?" Dr. Fraser laughed, clearly charmed by his enthusiasm. "I'm afraid clear isn't an option, but we do have white, which would let you draw on it and document your observations that way. White is acceptable for scientific purposes," Phoenix decided gravely. "When do I get it? Right now? Our orthopedic technician is waiting to fit you." Dr. Fraser turned to Linnea and Theron, her expression becoming more professional. "One parent can accompany him for the casting process. It takes about 20 minutes. "You should go," Linnea said to Theron, surprising both him and herself with the suggestion. "He'll want to explain all his scientific observations to someone, and you might actually understand what he's talking about better than I would." The offer, a small but meaningful extension of trust, clearly cost Linnea something, but her sincerity was evident. Theron accepted with a simple nod, not wanting to overemphasize the significance of the moment. "Ready for your cast, Phoenix?" he asked, offering his hand. "Ready," Phoenix confirmed, sliding off his chair with the resilience of childhood. "Mom, can Mr. Theron be the first one to sign my cast when it's done, since he drove us to the hospital and everything?" "Of course," Linnea agreed, settling back in her chair as they prepared to leave. "I'll wait right here." As Theron accompanied Phoenix down the corridor, the boy chattering excitedly about bone structure and healing processes, he glanced back to see Linnea watching them with an unreadable expression, not quite acceptance, not quite resignation, but perhaps the beginning of both. When they returned 30 minutes later, Phoenix proudly displaying his pristine white cast and recounting the casting process in minute detail, Linnea had completed the discharge paperwork and appeared more relaxed than Theron had seen her since his arrival in Portland. "The nurse gave me care instructions and a prescription for children's pain medication," she explained as they prepared to leave. "And apparently you've made quite an impression on the hospital staff. The billing department informed me that all charges have been taken care of by Mr. Blackwood's office." The slight edge in her tone suggested this unilateral decision might have overstepped, but Phoenix's presence prevented any direct confrontation on the matter. Theron simply nodded, acknowledging both the information and the implicit criticism. "Can Mr. Theron come home with us?" Phoenix asked as they reached the parking lot, his good hand still firmly clasped in Theron's. "He still hasn't signed my cast, and I want to show him how the rocks in my collection match the ones in the geology book he gave me." The request placed Linnea in an awkward position, her tentative steps toward accepting Theron's involvement colliding with her need to maintain boundaries. Theron prepared to diplomatically extract himself, not wanting to press his advantage, when Phoenix continued with the guileless persuasiveness of childhood. "And we could have pizza for dinner. Mom always says pizza is good medicine when you're not feeling well, and my arm still hurts a little. Please, Mom. Mr. Theron knows so much about rocks and bones and stuff." Linnea's resistance visibly crumbled in the face of Phoenix's enthusiasm. "If Mr. Theron doesn't have other plans, he's welcome to join us for pizza," she conceded. "But just for dinner. It's been a long day for everyone." "I'd be honored," Theron replied, keeping his tone casual despite the significance of the invitation. And I happen to be an expert in the medicinal properties of properly made pizza. Phoenix giggled at this claim, the sound lightening the mood as they returned to the car. The drive back to Laurel Lane passed more comfortably than their earlier journey, with Phoenix providing a running commentary on his newly acquired cast and the scientific observations he planned to record during the healing process. By the time they arrived at the small blue house, dusk was settling over Portland, the crooked mailbox casting a long shadow across the front yard. Reed's car was gone from the driveway, Theron noted, though whether by chance or deliberate choice remained unclear. I've already texted Reed about Phoenix's arm, Linnea mentioned casually as they entered the house, as if reading Theron's thoughts. He had an evening class to teach at the Community Arts Center, but he'll stop by tomorrow to see how our patient is doing. The information was delivered without apology or explanation, a simple statement of their normal routine that Theron was now being permitted to glimpse. He accepted it with the same neutrality, recognizing that pushing for clarity on Reed's role would only undermine the fragile truce they seemed to be establishing. Mom, can I show Mr. Theron my geology book while you order the pizza? Phoenix was already tugging Theron toward the living room bookshelf, his injured arm momentarily forgotten in his excitement. Go ahead, Linnea agreed, moving toward the kitchen with a slightly weary step that reminded Theron of her own recent medical crisis. The usual toppings, Phoenix? And Mr. Theron, any preferences? The usual is fine, Theron replied, deliberate in his phrasing, not presuming to know their usual order, but accepting whatever it might be as suitable. And please, it's just Theron. Mr. Theron makes me feel like a character in a children's book. A ghost of a smile touched Linnea's lips. Theron, then, she agreed before disappearing into the kitchen. The next hour unfolded with surprising naturalness, Phoenix proudly displaying his extensive library of science books, Theron becoming the first to sign the pristine cast with a marker solemnly selected from Phoenix's art supplies, Linnea joining them with tea while they awaited the pizza delivery. The domestic scene felt both foreign and strangely familiar to Theron, as if he were experiencing an alternate version of a life he might have lived had circumstances been different 7 years ago. When Phoenix finally succumbed to the day's excitement and medication, nodding off against Theron's arm mid-explanation of igneous rock formation, Linnea gently transferred him to his own bed, leaving Theron momentarily alone in the living room that bore so many signs of the life he had missed, family photos on the mantel, Phoenix's artwork on the refrigerator, the comfortable clutter of shared existence everywhere he looked. He'll probably sleep through the night, Linnea said quietly as she returned. The doctor said the medication might make him drowsy, and the emotional excitement of the injury tends to wear children out. He handled it remarkably well, Theron observed. Most children would have been far more distressed by a broken bone. Phoenix has always been unusually stoic about physical discomfort. Linnea settled into an armchair across from him, her posture suggesting she was preparing for a more serious conversation now that their son was asleep. When he was 4, he developed pneumonia so gradually that I didn't realize how sick he was until he collapsed at preschool. He never complained, just kept getting quieter and more withdrawn until his body couldn't compensate anymore. The story, shared with the casual intimacy of one parent to another, struck Theron with its poignant reminder of all he had missed, not just the milestone moments like first steps and words, but the smaller, equally significant experiences that shaped a parent's understanding of their child. He's extraordinary, Theron said again, the inadequate words standing in for the complex emotions beneath them. And you've done an incredible job raising him, Linnea. I want you to know I recognize that, without qualification or reservation. Linnea studied him, wariness still present, but tempered now with something less defensive. Thank you, she said finally. That means something, coming from you. I meant what I said earlier, about being committed to Phoenix's well-being above all else. Theron leaned forward, his expression earnest. Whatever arrangement we come to, whatever legal framework eventually defines our co-parenting, I want you to know that I respect the foundation you've built with him. I'm not here to disrupt or undermine that. Yet disruption is inevitable, isn't it? Linnea's question held resignation rather than accusation. No matter how carefully we proceed, Phoenix's understanding of his family, his history, his very identity will change once he knows who you really are. Yes, Theron acknowledged. But change isn't necessarily harmful if managed with care and honesty. Children are remarkably adaptable, especially when the adults in their lives provide consistency and clear communication. That sounds like something from a parenting book, Linnea observed, though without rancor. Have you been studying up on child development in your spare time? I've been consulting with experts, yes. Theron saw no reason to deny his methodical approach. Child psychologists, family counselors, specialists in blended family dynamics. I want to understand best practices for this situation. A surprised laugh escaped Linnea. Of course you have. Theron Blackwood approaches parenthood the same way he approaches corporate acquisitions: thorough research, expert consultation, strategic planning. Is that a criticism? Theron asked, genuinely uncertain. No, Linnea admitted after a moment's consideration. It's actually reassuring, in a way. You're taking this seriously, applying the same thoroughness that's made you successful in business to understanding how to be a father to Phoenix. I don't know any other way to approach something this important, Theron said simply. And I have 6 years of catching up to do. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of those lost years hanging between them. Finally, Linnea spoke again, her voice softer than before. I did try to find you, after I discovered I was pregnant. I called your number for days before realizing it had been disconnected. I went to your apartment and found new tenants who said the previous occupant had moved out weeks before. I even tried contacting Obsidian through their general information line, but was told you weren't available and no messages could be forwarded. My mother's work, Theron said grimly. She's always been skilled at creating barriers when it suited her purposes. Do you really believe she knew I was pregnant? That she deliberately prevented me from telling you about your child? I can't prove it without confronting her directly, which I intend to do. But it aligns with her pattern of behavior throughout my life. Theron's jaw tightened momentarily. Vivian Blackwood has always believed she knows what's best for me, regardless of my own wishes or the harm her interference might cause. She never approved of me, Linnea recalled, an old pain surfacing briefly. Too bohemian, too unconventional, too focused on art rather than social advancement. I believe her exact words were that I lacked the appropriate pedigree for a Blackwood alliance. Her values, not mine, Theron stated firmly. Though I failed to make that distinction clear enough when it mattered. The implicit acknowledgement of his own role in their breakup hung in the air, neither fully addressed nor dismissed. After a moment, Linnea sighed, running a hand through her copper hair in that familiar gesture of mild frustration. It's late, and we're both exhausted. The conversation about what happened 7 years ago, about your mother's interference and your choices and everything that followed, needs to happen eventually. But not tonight. Agreed. Theron rose, recognizing the gentle dismissal for what it was. Thank you for allowing me to be here today, for Phoenix, and for you. It means more than I can adequately express. You were good with him, Linnea acknowledged, walking him to the door. Patient with his endless scientific explanations, engaged with his interests. He responds to that intellectual connection. It's not difficult to be engaged with him. He's genuinely fascinating. Theron paused at the threshold, framed in the doorway as he had been hours earlier, though the dynamic between them had shifted subtly during the intervening crisis. Would it be acceptable if I called tomorrow to check on him? Perhaps brought over some books on geology or bone structure to distract him from the discomfort? Linnea considered the request, then nodded slowly. That would be fine. He'll be excited to show you his research notes on the cast by then. Fair warning, they'll be extremely detailed and possibly incomprehensible to anyone without a degree in orthopedics. I look forward to it. Theron hesitated, then added, and I meant what I said about being here for the long term, Linnea. Not just visits and phone calls, but real presence in Phoenix's life, in whatever capacity you're comfortable with. I'm starting to believe you might actually mean that, Linnea admitted, her expression softening slightly. But belief takes time, especially when trust has been broken before. I understand. Theron accepted the boundary implicit in her words. Time is something I'm prepared to invest, however much is required. As he walked to his car under the gentle glow of the porch light, Theron felt a curious sense of accomplishment despite the day's challenges, or perhaps because of them. The crisis with Phoenix's injury had accelerated a connection that might otherwise have taken weeks or months to establish, creating a shared experience that had temporarily aligned his and Linnea's priorities in a way their careful negotiations had not. In the corporate world, Theron had learned that sometimes the most significant breakthroughs came not from meticulous planning, but from crisis management, the unexpected challenges that forced new perspectives and unconventional solutions. Perhaps the same principle applied to building family relationships, to healing the breach of trust between himself and Linnea, to establishing his place in Phoenix's life. Whatever the path forward, one thing had become abundantly clear today. Phoenix was worth any effort, any patience, any compromise required to be part of his life. And for the first time since discovering his existence, Theron allowed himself to believe that Linnea might eventually come to accept his presence not merely as an obligation or legal reality, but as a positive contribution to the family she had so carefully constructed without him. It was, he reflected as he drove away from the small blue house with its crooked mailbox, perhaps the most optimistic thought he had entertained in 7 years. 6 weeks later, Theron sat in the waiting room of Portland General Hospital's orthopedic clinic, Phoenix beside him animatedly explaining the detailed journal he had kept documenting the healing process of his fractured wrist. The pristine white cast was now covered with signatures, scientific diagrams, and careful notations of dates and observations, a physical record of both medical recovery and Theron's increasing presence in his son's life. And this is where I marked the itching phase, Phoenix explained, pointing to a particularly dense cluster of notes. Dr. Fraser said that's actually a good sign because it means the bone is healing and nerve function is normalizing. Did you know bones have their own blood supply system? It's called the periosteum, and it's what helps them heal after a break. I did not know that, Theron replied with genuine interest. Your research has been remarkably thorough. Perhaps you should consider becoming an orthopedic surgeon yourself someday. Phoenix considered this suggestion with his characteristic seriousness. Maybe, but I also want to be a geologist, and an astronaut, and maybe run a museum with interactive science exhibits for kids. He glanced up at Theron with sudden curiosity. Did you always know you wanted to make computer security stuff? Not always, Theron admitted, recognizing the opportunity for connection in the question. When I was about your age, I wanted to be an archaeologist. I was fascinated by ancient civilizations and hidden treasures. Like Indiana Jones? Phoenix's eyes widened with interest. Somewhat less dramatically, but yes. I spent an entire summer digging up my mother's garden looking for artifacts. The memory, long buried beneath adult concerns, surfaced with unexpected clarity. She was not particularly pleased when I excavated her prize rose bushes. Phoenix giggled at the image. Did you find anything cool? An old coin, some pottery shards that were probably just broken flower pots, and a rusty key that I was convinced unlocked a secret treasure chest. Theron smiled at the memory of his childish certainty. No treasure chest ever materialized, but the experience taught me to look beneath surfaces, to question what might be hidden from immediate view. Those skills served me well when I eventually turned to cybersecurity. That's really cool, Phoenix declared, clearly filing away this new information about the man he had come to know over the past 6 weeks. Mom says everything we learn is useful somehow, even if we don't know why right away. Your mother is very wise, Theron agreed, the phrase becoming familiar through repetition. In their gradually developing relationship, he had been careful to always reinforce Linnea's authority and wisdom, never undermining her parental position even as he established his own. Phoenix Reeves. A nurse appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. Dr. Fraser is ready to remove your cast. Phoenix practically bounced out of his seat with excitement. Finally, I get to see what my arm looks like underneath. Do you think the skin will be all weird and peely? Trevor at school said when they took his leg cast off, his skin looked like zombie skin. There will likely be some dead skin cells that need to be washed away, Theron confirmed, following Phoenix toward the examination room. But I suspect zombie comparisons are somewhat exaggerated. Man, Phoenix sighed with mock disappointment. I was hoping for something really gross to show the kids at school. The nurse laughed, clearly charmed by Phoenix's enthusiasm for the potentially disgusting aspects of medical care. You're still getting to see the cast cut off with a special saw, which is pretty cool. And Dr. Fraser always lets kids keep their casts if they want. I definitely want to keep it, Phoenix confirmed. It's a scientific record of the entire healing process. Plus Mom says we can use it as a mold to make a plaster replica for my science shelf. As they settled into the examination room, the nurse paused in her preparation of the cast-removing tools. Will Phoenix's mother be joining us? We typically like to have the primary guardian present for procedures. Mom had to finish an important commission at her studio, Phoenix explained before Theron could respond. But it's okay because Theron is my dad, so he can sign forms and stuff. The casual statement, delivered with matter-of-fact certainty, froze both Theron and the nurse in momentary shock. Phoenix continued organizing his journal pages, apparently unaware of the bombshell he had just dropped. Phoenix, Theron said carefully, his heart pounding with a mixture of joy and concern. What did you just say? Phoenix looked up, confusion crossing his face before understanding dawned. Oh, was it supposed to be a secret still? I figured it out weeks ago. You have the same eyes as me, and the same way of organizing collections, and you both do the eyebrow thing when you're thinking really hard. He demonstrated the expression with comical exaggeration. Plus I heard Mom talking to Reed about telling him soon and Theron's rights as his father and stuff like that when they thought I was asleep. The nurse, displaying the professional discretion of someone who regularly encountered complicated family dynamics, busied herself with the cast-cutting equipment. I'll just step out for a moment to check on Dr. Fraser's schedule, she murmured, tactfully giving them privacy. Once alone, Theron knelt to Phoenix's level, choosing his words with care. You're right, Phoenix. I am your father. Your mother and I were planning to talk with you about this together, when we felt you were ready for the information. I know, Phoenix said, his expression serious beyond his years. That's why I didn't say anything before. I could tell it was complicated grown-up stuff because Mom gets that little wrinkle between her eyebrows whenever you're around, like she's trying to solve a really hard puzzle. Theron marveled at the perceptiveness of this child, his child, who had quietly observed and analyzed the adult dynamics around him with such clarity. Are you okay with this information? Do you have questions you'd like to ask me? Phoenix considered this thoughtfully. I have approximately 11 questions right now, but I think Mom should be there for most of them. Except this one. Are you going to stay in Portland now, or go back to New York? The directness of the question, and the vulnerability beneath it, struck Theron with physical force. I'm staying in Portland, he assured Phoenix. I've purchased a house here, and I'm establishing a regional office for my company. I'm not going anywhere, Phoenix. Good. Phoenix nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. Because I still have lots of rocks to show you, and we haven't finished the model of the solar system we started, and Mom says you're going to teach me chess when my cast comes off. The simple acceptance, the easy incorporation of Theron into his future plans, felt like a gift Theron had done nothing to deserve, yet everything to cherish. All of those things will happen, he promised. And many more if you want. I do want. Phoenix hesitated, then added with careful precision. When I tell people you're my dad, should I call you Dad instead of Theron? I wasn't sure about the protocol. The formal phrasing, so typical of Phoenix's approach to new information, nearly undid Theron's careful composure. You can call me whatever feels comfortable to you, he managed. There's no rush to change what you call me if you're not ready. Phoenix nodded, filing away this information with characteristic thoroughness. I'll think about it and make a decision after adequate consideration of all factors. That seems very wise. Theron cleared his throat, emotion threatening to overwhelm his usual reserve. Phoenix, we should probably call your mother about this conversation. She'll want to know what you've discovered. She already knows I figured it out. Phoenix replied with the confidence of absolute certainty. Moms always know stuff like that. She's just waiting for me to say something. Before Theron could respond to this unexpectedly profound observation, Dr. Fraser entered with the nurse, bringing the private moment to a close. The next 20 minutes were consumed with the technical process of removing Phoenix's cast, his excited commentary on the state of his arm beneath, and the doctor's instructions for gradually returning to normal activities. Through it all, Theron maintained his outward calm, though internally he was processing the seismic shift that had just occurred in his relationship with Phoenix. The secret was out, not through careful planning or controlled disclosure, but through a child's natural observation and deductive reasoning. Whatever carefully scripted conversation he and Linnea had been planning was now rendered unnecessary, replaced by the reality of Phoenix's matter-of-fact acceptance. As they left the clinic, Phoenix proudly carrying his preserved cast like a scientific treasure, Theron sent a text message to Linnea. Need to talk when we return. Phoenix has made an important discovery on his own. Nothing to worry about, but requires discussion. Her response came almost immediately. I know. He told me this morning before we left. Was waiting for you to catch up. Dinner at 6. We'll talk then. The message, with its hint of wry amusement at his surprise, suggested Linnea had been more prepared for this development than he had. It also reflected the gradual evolution of their communication over the past 6 weeks, from terse necessity to something approaching the easy understanding they had once shared. Can we stop for ice cream on the way home? Phoenix asked as they reached the car. Successful medical procedures should be celebrated with ice cream. That's a scientific fact. Is it now? Theron helped Phoenix with his seatbelt, still marveling at the casual acceptance with which his son had incorporated this life-changing information. In which peer-reviewed journal published this particular scientific fact? The Journal of Phoenix Reeves, came the prompt reply, accompanied by a grin that displayed the gap where a front tooth had recently been lost. Another milestone Theron had been present to witness, another small treasure added to his growing collection of paternal memories. Well, I can hardly argue with such a prestigious publication, Theron conceded, returning the smile. Ice cream it is. As they drove toward Phoenix's favorite ice cream shop, Theron found himself contemplating the remarkable journey of the past 6 weeks, from stranger to friend to acknowledged father, from outsider to increasingly integrated presence in the small blue house with its crooked mailbox. The path had not been without complications or setbacks, moments of tension with Linnea or uncertainty about his role. But with each careful step, each consistent demonstration of commitment, each small decision that prioritized Phoenix's well-being over his own convenience or comfort, Theron had gradually earned a place in their carefully constructed life. Not replacing what existed before, but adding to it, expanding the definition of family to include his presence without diminishing the foundation Linnea had built. And now, with Phoenix's casual acknowledgement of his paternity, a new phase was beginning, one that would require even more careful navigation, more transparent communication, more genuine cooperation between himself and Linnea. The legalities would need to be formalized, the practical arrangements of co-parenting defined more clearly, the boundaries between their separate lives and their shared responsibility for Phoenix established with greater precision. Yet beneath these pragmatic considerations lay something more fundamental, a shift in identity for all three of them. Phoenix was no longer simply Linnea's son, but also Theron's. Linnea no longer a single mother, but a co-parent. Theron no longer defined solely by his corporate achievements, but by this most basic and profound of human connections, father to a remarkable child. What kind of ice cream are you going to get? Phoenix asked, interrupting Theron's reflections with the immediate concerns of a 6-year-old. I haven't decided, Theron replied truthfully. What would you recommend? The salted caramel is really good, but sometimes trying new flavors leads to important discoveries. Phoenix delivered this wisdom with characteristic seriousness. That's how I found out I like lavender honey ice cream, even though it sounds weird. A compelling argument for culinary exploration, Theron agreed, filing away another small detail about his son's preferences and perspectives. Perhaps I'll try something new today. Good choice, Phoenix approved. Mom says life gets boring if you always pick the same flavor. As they pulled into the ice cream shop's parking lot, Theron's phone buzzed with another text from Linnea. Found this while cleaning studio. Thought you might want it. The accompanying photo showed a small clay handprint, Phoenix's, presumably from when he was much younger, preserved in fired ceramic with his name and age, 3 years, carefully inscribed beneath. The simple gesture, offering Theron a tangible connection to a moment in Phoenix's life he had missed, spoke volumes about how far they had come. From Linnea's initial protective resistance to this quiet acknowledgement of his place in their son's life represented a journey neither of them could have anticipated 6 weeks ago when a random phone call connected them after 7 years of separation. Theron's response was equally simple. Thank you. This means more than I can express. Ready for ice cream? Phoenix asked, already unbuckling his seatbelt with his newly liberated arm. Ready, Theron confirmed, tucking his phone away and focusing on the present moment, this ordinary, extraordinary slice of life with his son. Whatever challenges lay ahead in defining their new family structure, whatever complications might arise from their unusual circumstances, this simple reality remained. Phoenix existed. Phoenix knew him as his father, and Theron had been given the chance to be present for whatever came next. It was, he reflected as he followed his son toward the promise of ice cream and conversation. Far more than he deserved, but exactly what he needed. Not an empire of technology or wealth, but this most basic human connection, this chance to be known and to know, this opportunity to build something that would outlast any corporate achievement or financial success. A family, however unconventional. A future, however uncertain. A home, not in buildings or possessions, but in the place they created together.